Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Impact Space podcast. I'm here with my brother Mumbi, as always. Mumbi, what's good?
How's it going, brother?
It's good to see you. Another special guest today. We're so excited to have all the way from down under. Did I say that right? No, down under. I don't know my accent.
Down under. Yeah, yeah. That
Uh,
was good. That was good.
Noah Cavanaugh, and we're so excited. Both Mumbi and I are so excited to have Noah on. Noah, I'll let you introduce yourself, but just for our audience. Noah, Mumbi, and myself all go way back to the high school days. Actually,
hmm
is when I first met Noah, and I know you and Mumbi have been close ever since, and you play together, which we'll get into. But I had the good fortune at one point of coaching you both in high school, which was amazing for me. So to be on with you guys is an honor. So welcome, Noah.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So my name is Noah Cavanaugh. I currently live in Melbourne, in Australia. Go back till freshman year in high school when Moombi and I met, and was coached by Matunda, and it's been a awesome friendship with both of you guys ever since then. So I think it's awesome to be here. Excited to rip it up.
Nah, man, we're so pumped. Mumbi, let's get started, man. There's so much the folks got to know about Noah. This is gonna be and for you all listening, before I turn it over to Mumbi, like we have for you listening and watching, Noah's big time in these YouTube streets. So this is like a big time coup for us to get him on here. And if you're interested in any advice, this is a shameless plug for Noah. If you're interested in any advice on boots, on footwear of anything, or if you just want to follow someone who's super dedicated, super passionate, super driven, he's a great follow. So we'll get all your socials stuff out there, Noah. Make sure, don't be shy.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, man, Mumbi, kick us off.
All right, man. Well, Noah, just take us through your journey, the beginning and when you started to play, and then up until we met, high school, and then college and beyond. The people want to hear your story.
Yeah. So, and feel free to interject anytime if you've got questions as well. Footy for me started really early on. My parents made sure and really wanted me to be a more diverse athlete. And so they had me playing three sports until I was 13 years old, until I graduated from, eighth grade, if you can call it a graduation. But footy was always my favorite. Football was the thing that I was doing in the backyard during the summertime. It was like I swam competitively and did cross country, played some basketball. Like those were kind of my other sports that I dabbled in. But everything came secondary to football growing up. And so when I joined my first kind of select team, which was Emerald City back in the day, and joined in, I was 13, I believe, or 12 maybe, U13 year. And so that would have been 2007 or 2008. And started playing on the B team and was a striker back then because I grew really quickly. I was bigger than a lot of the kids in my young age. And so played center forward, ended up moving up really quickly to the A team, played for Emerald City for a couple years, moved over to Seattle United right before high school started. And then freshman year of high school was when I I had Seattle United freshman and sophomore year, I think, of high school. And that's when Moombi and I met, started playing together under Coach Hendricks, which was good. And I remember there's a lot of great stories during that period of time on the ferry rides coming back from Bainbridge and in the bus. And it's just, yeah, so many memories of back then and of playing down at Windy Magnuson Park. So played at Seattle United under a couple really great coaches, and then made the move over to Crossfire because I wanted to kind of get a little bit more exposure. So ended up playing up a year, sophomore and junior year, with the 94s, with Moombi's age group actually, and then played my own age group my senior year when those guys graduated and went off to college. Ended up playing at Whitman College, which was a small D3 school in Washington State, for those who don't know. and went there because of the academic piece and also because of just wanted to. Yeah, I just got a really good vibe from the school, and there's a lesson in there from my cousin who got a full ride to Penn State. She was part of a Spokane Shadow team back in the day that won state 6 years in a row, was dominant at the national level. Just for whatever reason, her age group at Shadow was incredible. And she went to Penn State on a full ride, or was going to, Harvard. I mixed it up. So she had a full ride to Harvard. Harvard coach moved to Penn State, and she was so excited to do Harvard because she wanted to do dentistry and the whole 9 yards. Ended up moving to Penn State, tore her ACL after sophomore year, absolutely hated the school, and ended up quitting after 2 years, even though she was a starter and was a national contender for player of the year and like all this stuff. And the lesson there really was, if you're going to go somewhere and not just go to play soccer, you got to love the place you're going to. And that was one thing that I took with me for every decision I made for the college program. Went and toured a bunch of schools for college, and then ended up at Whitman, played 4 years there, which was great. Ended up actually getting some experience abroad. My junior year took sort of a study abroad, if you can even call it that. Ended up just going basically to go and play footy in a country that I knew I could go and play in. And so had some experience abroad, and then almost as soon as I graduated, had been talking to Moombi obviously throughout this entire 8-year period, but ended up going and meeting him over in Spain, where we played in San Sebastian for what would be like about 3 months over the course of that summer. Unfortunately, it got cut short for a multitude of reasons, and then played in LA Force the year after that in the inaugural year of NISA at the pro level, and went down to Australia right after that, met my missus, played for about a year and a half, and then came back and got signed for Michigan Stars, which was a crazy experience in and of itself. And then about halfway through that season, got pulled over through a really remarkable series of events with a guy who you guys, I'm sure, will maybe have on the podcast, Michael Cunningham, at some point, who ended up kind of ushering me over to Rochester, actually for creator reasons, to do some collabs on videos and stuff for our businesses. And I ended up signing with Flower City 3 days later. And there was just like the crazy serendipity of the football world just happened kind of overnight. And I played the rest of the season, started every game for Flower City in NISA. We didn't even make it out of single digits of points, and then got re-signed for the next year, and Moombi joined the club, and we won the national title. And that's what led us to now, I guess. I mean, it was a year ago, but yeah, close enough. So that's kind of a very short version of my story.
Was that only a year ago, guys?
We won in 23, so a year and 3 months ago.
Yeah, my goodness. Yeah.
4 months ago. Crazy. Feels like a long time ago, to be fair.
Yeah.
Wow. And Noah, so just if you can, for people to understand your story a bit more, can you tell them more about how you started with your business and how you started to create content?
Yeah, 100%. So I had always followed guys like Michael, actually, and Matt Sheldon, and a couple other dudes who I had been watching for a really long time. And YouTube as a platform was sort of my chosen media if I wanted downtime. Like, I would be watching highlight videos, or I'd be watching, whatever highlights of Dani Alves or Jordi Alba or players like that, who I just looked up to and admired from a playing perspective, and or just to. Can we swear on the pod? Is that cool? Just moving forward. I don't have to be crazy.
I don't know if we've.
I don't think we've done it. I don't think we've. Let's.
Okay, I'll
go ahead.
keep it
Say it.
clean.
Better ask for forgiveness. No, go ahead. Say what you're gonna say.
No. It was more just like to preface the rest of the episode. It wasn't really for like a comment now. But anyway, point being is
you'll be
that
fine. Say what you gotta say, Noah.
Yeah. Yeah, or if I was, sitting down and not doing anything, and YouTube was like, I would rather watch YouTube videos because I could search for stuff and learn things and whatever, as opposed to going to Netflix. And so really, when COVID hit in 2020, it was 2 months, literally COVID hit 2 months after I moved to Perth in Australia to play down here. And we were really lucky because Western Australia, which takes up, people don't know, Australia is the same geographical size as America. So it's a giant country, but we have the population of LA County. It's like 30 million people in the entire country. And so a third of the country is siphoned off as Western Australia, or almost half of the country. And so it's a giant state, and Perth sits on the far end, on the far west side. And so it's actually the most major remote city in the world. What that meant was the national government and the state government could basically shut down the entire state, and then we could operate per usual, right? A lot of clubs had shut down. Obviously in COVID, a lot of empty stadiums happening, the whole 9 yards. We played with, we had a full season in 2020 with fans and youth players hanging out, and I coached youth club teams at my club and all that stuff. So it was an amazing and really lucky place to be in that 2020 year. But during that time, we had about 8 weeks of lockdown. And I sort of said to myself, I was like, how am I going to set myself up for success moving forward? And I had just sort of started pulling away the identity of I am a footballer to football is something that I do. And I am my own person. I am my own unique individual. I have value outside of football. I have value outside of the things that I accomplish. And how do I build a life for myself in the future, for the wife and kids that I want to have moving forward, for which Emma and I hadn't met at that point. But it was like starting to really think about, like, okay, I've had, long-term relationships before, and if I am going to date, it's going to be long-term. So how do I do this? And I met with a few people who were in the YouTube space who, as well as some personal branding experts, and really sort of got on board with what personal brands meant as an extension of who you are, and then you can start to build out kind of the aspects of what you do, and starting to separate those two things, not only to build a really, really rock solid confidence in self, which translates really well to the pitch, but also in order to create businesses out of it, which has been the case ever since then. So 2020 had kind of always had a fascination with social media and YouTube and sort of the game of media. And I just started posting really, really shockingly crap videos on YouTube. You guys can go and watch them if you want. I leave them up there because I want people to understand that everyone starts from zero, regardless of what you're doing. And it's like, I think that's something to be proud of. It's like, you look at Now's videos, like we were talking about just before we went live. Now's videos look insane and they're beautiful, and I have 2 people on my team now who help me with admin and production and stuff. But yeah, it's just that's kind of when it started, and it's just sort of progressed from there.
And I was gonna say too, how much more do you appreciate your journey now that you can look back and you have all that footage, you have all of that, all that content that you said, you said crappy, but your standard has risen and you've learned how to do things better. But how cool is it that, yeah, you can go back and say there has been that much growth, there has been that much progression, because you don't just overnight become what you've become now, which is, for people that are watching, you're one of the top boot reviewers in the industry, and you're one of the top boot reviewers in the world and content creators in the world. That doesn't just happen overnight, right? And so I wanted to make sure that people understand that you've been on this journey for years and years and years, and the consistency, and hopefully you can speak to that here in a second, but the consistency at which you've been able to post and produce content has been incredible. You've been on it every single week for the last 5.5 years, yes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, every week.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So yeah, say more. Like when that's the piece that's fascinating for me. All of it's fascinating, but the consistency piece, right? Of
Yeah.
constantly, let's be real. Content creation is not for everyone,
Totally.
and for a long time, I didn't think it was for me or for Mumbi and I just started on his journey, and who knows what will become of it. At the same time, I do appreciate how people, you know, essentially the grind that you have to put in to be good at anything is I think what's really insightful about your journey. And I remember when you were here and you and I spoke in person about this, it was really cool, and it was really inspirational for me. So say more about your I guess your method and your of getting yourself in that space where you can consistently not just put out content, but I guess what I really love about it is your willingness to be bad at first.
Yeah.
Is something
Absolutely.
that a lot of people, full stop, but especially young players who maybe want to reach a higher level or whatever, think about doing anything outside the game, is a really important lesson. Say more about that and how you navigate, becoming better at stuff.
Absolutely. So maybe we'll start with consistency. So consistency, I'll give my dad huge credit for this because he's one of the most consistent people I've ever met in my life. Just every day, day after day, this is what he does. These are his values. He's online with what he's trying to do. And so learning from that and sort of realizing at a pretty young age that looking at things from, you have to set minor goals over the course of a week or even a day or a couple months or a season or whatever. It's nice to have KPIs, as we call them in the industry, right? You want to have key performance indicators for those young players watching. So that's like, if Moombi and I sat down before our Flower City season and we said, hey, we want to win the championship, we want to be in the final, that's a KPI, right? So what I learned really early on, though, was if you take a big picture approach to things, i.e., if I want to be doing football in 10 years, what are the things that I have to do today, tomorrow, the next day that are going to keep me on track to be the best version of myself moving forward and improving over time? At some level, if I want to achieve, let's say, winning a national title, so if we rewind to 2020 when I'm in COVID, and we don't have team trainings and I have no one standing over my head saying, hey dude, you've got to work out every day. If my goal is to win a national title in my home country at a pro level, if that's the KPI at some point in my soccer future or my football future, that goal doesn't care how I feel on the day. It doesn't care that I feel lethargic. It doesn't care that no one else is out there with me. The point is that I'm doing the work. And so consistency is simply a byproduct of how motivated, in my opinion, it's how motivated are you to achieve the things you want to achieve. And it's a personal thing. You may not want to be a national champion. That's okay. It's totally okay. But consistency for me became a byproduct of what those goals were and my drive to achieve them well before consistency became a thing that I identified as a character trait of mine. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so that for me was how I started to think about consistency, and then it just became really easy. It became okay, the goal says this, so that means I'm not going to eat this thing, or I'm going to let my body recover instead of going out to drink alcohol or whatever, and that was just a personal choice. Again, Moombi and I had the same outcome. We both won the title, but he and I went about it in different ways. Like, he and I had different life choices and stuff, and that's totally okay. It's just a matter of, one of us made this decision, one of us made this decision, but on average, our decisions to get there were pretty darn similar. It takes a lot of discipline, a lot of hard work, and a lot of understanding how you're improving over the course of time. So that's what I would say about consistency. And then the second piece, Matunda, remind me, you were curious about.
I think you touched on it, but it was the willingness to look bad or be the willingness to
For sure.
to be to be bad or messy at first is a beautiful
100%.
thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So that, I think, is something that I don't know who to give it credit for, but I know I was surrounded by a lot of people a long time ago in life and in footy who were there. And this is interesting because I'm sure there's a conversation here to be had about youth sports and where do you draw the line between really healthy competition and participate and like helping people understand that the fact that you showed up is important. I'm not saying I am a firm non-believer in participation medals. I think that is the absolute most bullshit thing you could possibly give to a child. And also, there is a lesson to be learned about showing up and about giving your best effort, even if you didn't succeed in whatever way that is. And so when it comes to failing, I think this also comes back to the separation of like personal brand and who I am as a human being versus what I do. As you get used to that idea of, yeah, I'm a footballer. Football is what I do. Football is what I love. It's what I'm passionate about. It's still what I am surrounded by every day. I started to understand that, at least for myself, and again, this isn't going to be for everybody, but I started to understand that over the course of time, I'm going to have to die. If I'm going to accomplish the goals that I want to accomplish, I'm going to have to start from zero on a bunch of different stuff. Like doing taxes as an adult, or buying my first home, or having a child. Like none of these things, I'm not starting with any life experience on these things. And again, I'm talking a little bit outside of football, but when it comes to, I think I think it's confidence in self and also not worrying about what other people think of you. And I think those two things have been a massive blessing for me in developing those skills because, and I think Moombi would attest to this, especially in the in some of the locker rooms we've been in together. I genuinely don't care what people think of me. Like I actually don't. And so I understand that people are on their own journey and everybody's got their own way of moving forward in life and in football. And for me, it was just like, okay, cool. I'm willing to eat shit for however long it takes in order to get to where I want to be, which is kind of I'm in process now of that goal of consulting with some of the biggest brands in the world on their football boots and doing performance footwear consulting and one of the biggest, if not the biggest, football boot reviewer on the planet in terms of, you know, what I do and sort of the way that I go about it. And so it's simply in the way, it's the same justification as consistency. It's like being sucky at something is simply a byproduct of going after the things that you really want to go after. You're going to start at zero. And so, okay, cool. That's just like a thing I have to deal with for a little while. And it's definitely not temporary, or it's definitely not forever.
No, I love that.
Which I was going to add, for young players, it can be hard to see that bigger vision, right? Like when we were, 15, 16, how far did we look ahead? I think that conversation it can be difficult for kids to have, especially maybe teenagers where you're entering high school and maybe sometimes there's peer pressure or sometimes there's pressure from parents or there's pressure from, this is what club soccer should be like. Like I should be on this certain team or on this team. It's so hard to strip it away and focus on, what you and I have talked about a lot, which is the process versus the results, right? And so sometimes I think we get so caught up in, I'm not in that team yet. I don't play for that club. Or that, I was having this conversation today, that badge isn't on my jersey. What value are all these things that we're like, and so what I'm hearing from you is that these things are all superficial and they're not things that we can control. I remember 2 years ago, you and I were having so many conversations week in and week out. And I know you won't mind me sharing this, but one of the things that helped you was you had this awesome mentor, this sports psychologist. And one of the things that you and I talked about consistently and you would share from these sessions was you have to remove your ego from it. And that, like you said earlier, your feelings, your goals don't care about how you feel, right? And that ultimately you have to find a way to improve. You have to find a way to grow and keep pushing yourself forward. Because at the end of the day, that's all that's going to matter is did you do it or did you not? And sometimes you'll get the result and sometimes you won't. But you don't fail if you keep trying, And so sometimes this is a conversation that I had with a kid the other day. It was, okay, winning and losing, but does that mean success and failure? No, it doesn't. I gave this kid the example, Noah, of a couple years ago when I was coaching him. We played up 2 years in a tournament, or sorry, we played up 1 year in a tournament. This kid was guest playing for me, playing a year up, so he was playing 2 years up. In this tournament, so my team I was coaching was playing 9v9, so went and played 11v11. And I had this kid that usually plays 9v9 that came and played with me. I had another kid that was in that team that actually played 7v7, so another year below. So this kid was playing 2 years up and then playing a third year up, this other kid I had. And so we went and played 11v11 for basically the first time. And we played awesome. It was so cool to see. These kids, it kind of looks goofy because they're tiny and they're playing on this massive, massive field. We made it to the final. We lost, but the conversation I had with this kid 2 years later was, hey, did we fail that weekend? I know we lost the final, but did we fail? And the kid was like, no. He's like, I was playing 2 years up. This other kid was playing 3 years up. Our whole team was playing a year up. And most of us had never played on an 11v11 field. We did awesome, and we had so much fun. Okay, great. The process keeps going, right? And so we remove our ego from it because winning and losing maybe are temporary things on the day-to-day, but success is something that you measure over a much longer period of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I think the focus on process is really what gets me through, or I should say, got me through a lot of the really difficult mental struggles over the course of my career. And I think that single thing is, if you get anything from this particular episode of the pod, focusing on process changes your entire outlook on the way that you operate in the game. From like second to second, but also macro scale your entire career.
I want to go into sort of the life in the lower leagues of pro and the drive that you have to have, the discipline. When you're not on a lot of money, you're living in, random places on the continental U.S. or in abroad, wherever that is. And specifically that magical Flower City run. Like, take us a little bit through that, Noah, in terms of what that was like. How you guys were able to, get that season going and pull it together. I'm fortunate to have obviously watched, I want to say, 2 games in person. 2 games, because I came to Rochester and saw you guys. And then we saw you in LA in the playoffs. So yeah, I watched 2 games in person and watched some others and then all that playoff run. But just tell us about what that was like from the inside.
Yeah, I think for me it was there's a big difference between living in my own place with my wife and playing lower level pro footy versus living in team housing playing lower level pro footy. That's a very different storyline. And I'm not saying that it's necessarily easier or harder either way. Actually, I am saying that. It's a lot easier when you're with your missus.
You had a nice setup. I saw it.
Yeah.
You had a nice setup.
yeah. But I think even from a getting personal space from teammates, I think it goes much beyond that. And it's like my wife and I had conversations quite often that, especially during that season early on, where I was going through kind of ups and downs of I would get playing time and then I wouldn't, and then it just seemingly without explanation, and I'll take full responsibility for like the performances as well. Like, I'm sure there were things that the coach saw that I thought I was doing well, but I wasn't. But regardless of the reason, we would have these conversations that really just ended up being like, if this all goes to crap and I end up getting kicked off the team because coach doesn't like me anymore and whatever, we're gonna be fine. Because we have each other, and I have, again, it's like separating that thing of like, I have value to give other than just my feet on a football pitch. And that storyline is much, much different than let's say the LA Force year. and
Right.
and that one was a whole different can of worms, which I'm happy to get into. But I think from a Flower City, that Flower City year, the 2023 season, it it was a combination, I think, of trial and error, and it was us sort of realizing that it was okay to suck at the beginning because we were a completely new team. Even though Jordy was our head coach, he was our assistant the year before, so he was still like in the program, and a lot of his philosophies he tried to implement the year prior when I was on the team and we finished dead last. And when you have all but two or three guys, basically a whole new roster come in, inevitably there's a we have expectations of winning. There's this we were debatably the most talented team in the country at that level, and we had some amazing players in every position. We had roster depth, et cetera, et cetera. And I think I don't think it was ever really spoken about, and maybe it was something that Jordy had said offhandedly over and over again that just sort of, as a player goes in one ear and out the other, but it really was like, it's okay to not be amazing at first, but over time, and you keep focusing on the principles and you keep focusing on the little details. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of training sessions that were either identical or very, very similar because they all followed a series of principles that Jordy was trying to get across to us. And I think over time, I give him full credit for this because he just persisted even through a lot of those moments where, he even told me, he was like, dude, I don't know if I'm going to have a job next week. Like, I really don't. And this is just what it is. And I think, and I sort of felt the same thing. And I was like, I have no idea if this is going to continue. And to keep persisting with the process and just keeping our head down and, hey, things will come around, things will come around. I think when we hit the tail end of the season, results became just what they were. And I remember sitting in the locker room with the group at halftime at Chattanooga when we were, doing our thing and we were playing and we were killing it and playing in front of whatever 5,000 people or whatever were in the Chattanooga stadium. And everyone was sort of sitting there like, wait a second. Like, we're just going to go out and enjoy ourselves. Like, what are we doing? I remember Matt Bolduck was sitting there. He was like, dude, what are we fucking doing here? and sort of not in the sense of like, we have to get motivated. It was more like, guys, like, look at us. This is crazy. Like we've been so deep in the process that we're not even realizing that we're playing, for some of us, the biggest game of our life right now in the semifinal of NISA. And so I think that insistence on process and that insistence on, hey, we're all going to buy into this identity as a team and we're just going to work for each other. It came together in a really beautiful way. And I think you saw that in the final as well. I mean, Chattanooga definitely sort of expected to win, as they sort of always did in NISA, but particularly against the Stars at home for them, there was this like arrogance about that team that was almost hilarious, because I think our group just came on the field and we were like, at some level, like I kind of knew we were going to win, because I was like, nobody's fussed right now. Like, we're going through warm up just like we did 8 months ago, doing the same warm up drills, doing the same thing. Everybody's talking shit to each other, and it's going to be awesome. And we weren't even like, no one was saying anything about winning. Everyone was saying things about like, let's go get this thing. Exactly. And that's where.
What did you say, Noah? It was talk about what instead of winning?
It was just talk about let's play our game. Let's focus on process. I mean, Moombi sort of led that, I think, from a team perspective of like, just focus on the little things. Like, just do your job well, match up with your guy, play hard, have heart, and let's just go out and have an awesome end of the season. We've made it further than every other team but one, obviously, Michigan Stars. And so why not? Why not us? It was just sort of that question of like, hey, it's not about winning and losing right now. It's about going out and ending the season on our terms. And to me, I think there was a very different message in the Michigan Stars locker room before that game. And you could tell as soon as they walked on the pitch. I was like, I sort of in the back of my head was like, okay, Noah, focus on process, but also like, we got you guys. Like this game isn't going to go any other way but with us in a dub.
It's beautiful because and Mumbi, actually I'll step back. Mumbi, you were there. You were the captain, Mumbi. So what? Yeah, your take before I.
I think the guys by the end of the year were fully bought in, and when you focus on process, despite the results, because it was rocky for a good chunk of the season, it really shows you that when a group of people come together, there's almost nothing more powerful, right? Because on paper, in terms of the quality of the teams, some people will actually look and say, oh, Nisa or third division, there were amazing players we played against and very, very good teams we played against. Like, I don't remember playing in a game and being like, oh, that was just a walk in the park. It's not the truth. And so for us to stick together the way that we did, and I go back to this, and I know, Kusala, we've talked about this, but when you go back and watch even the Chattanooga game, Noah, you'll remember this sequence. There's a sequence where it's late in the game. It might be extra time. And, we're tired. We're hanging on for dear life. Mike Mejia's having the game of his life.
The goalkeeper.
And we're just not giving in. Save after save from Mike. Defensive clearance after defensive clearance. Angelo's giving his life to throw himself in front of a ball. Kyle's tracking down a guy, sprinting 30, 40 yards down the field. But I remember this sequence where it's late in the game and I'm tracking back and I'm running and I know that you're my wing back and you're coming too. But there's a sequence where the ball goes over my head and I'm running to it. I'm closing the guy down and, in my ear I hear, I got you. But I'm like, you would be coming from that side, not from the inside. Oh, I got you. And I look and I'm like, oh, that's Luke Ferreira, our 10, arguably our most talented player. One of the best players, I think, in the league that season. And to see him sprinting back 30, 40 yards, I'm like, there's no way. There's no way we can lose if we have that level of commitment and trust in one another. And then, ball goes out for a goal kick. I think the three of us, you arrived as well. And then we high-five each other like, yes, like we got this, So for me, just the fact that everyone was able to buy in and to see that growth from people, that maybe at one point in the year we didn't have everybody tracking back, and now we have our best players tracking back consistently. That made all the difference. So that's where I think that year was so special and why it ended the way we did. I honestly do believe that maybe even at the end that maybe we weren't the most talented team, but if you could measure this in some way, we were the most linked up or synced up. We were the most cohesive in that sense of fighting because every team underestimated us for sure. Sure. Mm-hmm. And for us, it was just a side quest. Those were the words from Jordy that led us through the playoffs. This is a side quest, guys. Nobody expected us to be here, but you better believe, and he said this early in the season, that on any given day we can beat anybody, and he was right.
No, it's great, and I will say from a fan's perspective, watching that obviously with family, both of you guys involved was something. I won't beat around the bush. You guys were not the most talented team. Chattanooga was very good, and that game was something else to watch because if you listen, we've talked about this. Sometimes you got to get lucky as well. They had a couple sequences where it's like, yo, how did they not score? And your goalkeeper made a save. Noah, do you remember the one where he there was a block? Then the guy...
And he went down.
Anticipating the shot, but it was somehow blocked. Somebody, I think, got a leg. He went down, and then the guy had a header or something that he put at him, and he had to get it up and flicked it over the... Just some stuff that you're like... Bro, they had two of those sequences. No, take nothing away. But my point in saying that is just...
Of course.
My point in saying that is... a lot has been made sometimes about this sport and it's the reason I love your guys' story and I share it, except you guys beat me. I didn't win anything. Right? You guys won a whole ass national championship. This is amazing. And the thing is, I want to shine. I want to put a spotlight on that because and again, this is why it's so perfect to have you on, Noah, is like whatever level it is, you get to a pro level, and people don't really realize how good these players are. Just even let's say at MLS level, right? And again, there's a lot of conversation around what's wrong in U.S. soccer, right? And there's a lot of valid critiques. My point is that what's taken for granted, what's often taken for granted, is how good players are, right? All over the world, like the level is really high. And we can have critiques about style and coaching philosophies and this and that, and that's a separate kind of thing for me right now. But if we just boil it down to when you're watching people perform the craft, when I went to that playoff game in LA and watched you guys play, like the couple goals you scored at the beginning, just buzzing. Some of the players that LA had, quality guys, and the way you guys, lived your passion and got a whole group to come together, facing the adversity that you faced, being outgunned in some games, but the way you defended, the way you ran for each other, and not enough is spoken about the value in that. So whatever level, the players who are listening to this, like you have two people here in Mumbi and Noah who literally got a group of guys who are not making big bucks, who are playing lower league professional ball that maybe not a lot of people are paying attention to outside of like families like myself and other people. But process focused, remarkable individuals, incredibly disciplined, and now you have stories that you will never forget. Right? You have obviously friendships, bonds. The three of us are connected for life, but also just watching that, I was so proud of you both, and yeah. So I just want you guys to know like how much fun that was for me to be a part of, watching from the outside, and obviously being connected, knowing a little bit about what's going on the inside. But thank you for that, because it was unbelievable to live that through you guys. I don't know. Anything you want to add, Noah? Or we can take it in a different direction, but
No, it was an incredible year. I mean, I think for me, the thing that at the end of it all really proved to me about process was it was like, that's a beautiful, like winning the championship was a beautiful thing. And also, that's not even close to the thing that I'll remember for the rest of my life. Like that's
and
not,
I know where you're going with this.
It probably doesn't even make like top 10 as far as football memories, which is crazy to say because it's like that was sort of my KPI in my, as a 12-year-old. I was like, national title. At the time I was like, I'm going to play for the Sounders and whatever, but that obviously wasn't ever going to happen. But it just, to me, that was, okay, cool, hit the KPI, but I was so deep in process of just enjoying every single moment that the actual winning of the game, like if you look at any footage, and this is kind of wild, I don't know if this is indicative of anything or not, but I look back at some of the footage of the whistle being blown and sort of that montage of like Jordy and the bench players like going crazy and screaming. You look at the montage of us all celebrating, and I'm just judging myself here. I wasn't like freaking out. It was more just like genuine peace and happiness. And it was just like, wow, that was a beautiful season. Really, really hard, but in that way, more meaningful. And I think that's what people really don't understand is when, and we're wrapping this back around to sucking at stuff at first, but when you're really good at something and you start really, really good at something, it's not even close to as meaningful as if you started at 0 and sucked for a while and then got really good at that thing. It's not even close. Like from a meaning perspective and from a fulfillment perspective. That's been the case in my life. It's been the case in, I know, friends of mine who have said similar things. It's like, and that's not to say that you should go after everything that you suck at. It's more just to say it's okay to suck because this will be something that even if you end up failing, whatever that means, you're gonna find it a meaningful experience.
what was it? And that's beautiful sentiment. And I want to say, are you familiar with? Is it Trevor Reagan, Train Ugly? Do you know this person?
I've heard of it. Yeah.
You've heard of it, yeah? Is that the right? Train Ugly. I have to look it up. I should know it off the top of my head, but yeah, no, everything that you're saying resonates very deeply. I do have a follow-up question. You said that winning the championship in that season wasn't the biggest highlight. What would you say? Putting you on the spot, maybe, but what would you say was the biggest highlight then for you?
Of that season or of my career?
Yeah, that's well, both if you want to answer, but specifically that season, you said
Sure.
you have memories that that was it.
Yeah. I think for me, the biggest thing that I got out of it was, I think I'm most proud of, well, I mean, the memories that I have with Moonby and with the boys at the coffee shop and stuff. That's actually what's going to be the thing that carries me on forever. Like those memories with, you, me, Michael, Angelo, the Ben Watson, like these guys who we just enjoyed hanging out with. And those are obviously memories that are going to carry a lifetime. And then there are, maybe some memories of like specific small-sided games that got really rowdy in like a positive way, and everyone was like yelling and screaming at each other, and they were all like, being goofballs and whatever. Like those things are really enjoyable. But for me, the biggest win of that year was almost forcing myself to be resilient and to focus on the process. Because there were moments, and Moonby and I had literal countless conversations about the mental struggles that I went through that year with some of the team decisions and other things where, I was so deep into the actual process of me every day performing the best I could. It never made sense to me why somebody else would get picked or why we wouldn't get results or whatever. And that was just a personal struggle on my end. And so I think the biggest moment for me was like those conversations, but what came out of those were an incredible resilience and sort of backing myself even when things aren't going my way.
And the reason I think that's so powerful is because the reality for young players that are listening to this is that things can't always go your way. Right? And so what are you going to do when there's a curveball? What are you going to do when you're not starting? What are you going to do when you're not getting the minutes that you want? We had these conversations, Noah, and it was so awesome because if you had quit, right? And I think it's important to highlight that you were by far, I believe, the hardest working player in that team, bar none. We come in and you shattered the beep test. Came in every single day and you're there with me early. The first one's in the facility, right? To do your, you would take your notes, right? You do your visualization before the training session. You do your prehab before the training session. Then you get it on the field and start doing some touches before the training session. Then you train like a beast, like an animal. And then afterwards you're doing your recovery stuff. And then we go to the coffee shop, do work for a few hours, get some dinner, go home, wake up, do the next thing. And so for me, if you stopped doing all those things, there's no way, first of all, that you would have played later, right? Because you can't stop doing the work and then expect to play. But then the second thing is that then you wouldn't have grown, right? And you wouldn't have learned that, okay, like sometimes there may be a situation where I'm not picked or I'm not, for whatever reason, someone else it's their turn. When it's my turn, though, I'm going to make sure I kill it. And that's what I loved watching, your process was that, no, I'm going to stick with it. Because when I get that chance again, I'm going to show why I deserve that spot or I deserve those minutes. And I'm going to give everything I've got for the team, right? And so I love that about you that season. And seeing you go through that journey was a privilege because not many people would have been able to handle that, right? Where you think, oh yeah, I'm for sure, right? Like it's common sense. We all think this, oh, I'm the guy, right? Like I should be starting. I should be playing. I'm better than that guy, or I'm, but someone else may not see it that way. And you have to adjust. You have to adapt, and you have to be willing to accept that situation, but keep working and keep working and keep trying, and that's what I loved, being next to you every single day, in that team. That was awesome.
No, thank you. I mean, that's, again, I think Matunda, you touched on this earlier about kind of there is something special about being a lower level pro soccer player, specifically in America. we don't have to necessarily get into well, I'll just tell you what I was making, and this is, so all of that to say, the context was that I was on $400 a month. So I have to do that while making not even enough to cover my grocery bill. And that's where I think people really get hung up, is like, I'm not saying it's for everybody. And if that's not your thing, if you don't want to grind because footy for you is a financial investment for you or your family, that's a beautiful thing. For me, I was doing it because of, number one, process, number two, goals, but number three was just like love of the game. And I enjoyed that journey and that grinding and stuff. And I think context is important, because it'd be really easy for me to pat myself on the shoulder. Moonby says these really nice things about me that season that I still carry with me today. I mean, those are still the habits that I have today in a different, different areas of my life. But it's like, that would be awesome if I was on 10 grand a month. Like, ooh, look at you. That's so easy, whatever. But it's like, those habits and behaviors become exponentially more difficult when you're not making enough to cover your food for the month.
Yeah, and here's the thing though, you might also say, and this is not to take any shine off of either one of you, it's just, also when you're on that kind of money, you understand that you have to do it in order to just keep making that
Yes.
money or more, right? It's a necessity. That's a constraint that you can't, and that's the, I mean, shoot, like, there's a lot of conversations right now in different parts of the world with different national teams or clubs where people, and in different sports, where people bash athletes because it's like, oh, look, they have so much, right? They get so much. And listen, that, not saying that those critiques cannot be valid or aren't valid. It's just also to get to a level where you're living your passion. You have to go through the fire. Right?
For sure.
You have to go through the fire, and or you have to be some insanely talented person. But even if you're that, you still have to go through the fire. I'm going to give a quick example from, I think all three of us appreciate the sport of basketball, right? We all appreciate basketball. Okay. I love basketball. Second favorite sport behind football, right? Steph Curry. Amazing talent, right? But there's a lot of mythology around Steph Curry, and I like to squash it because, again, I look at, he's not the only one, but I highlight him because the people listening to this will know who he is, right? And it's hard not to see a highlight of him or these amazing shots he takes. People need to realize how long he's been training the most excellent quality of his game, the jump shooting. How long he's been training and how he's trained it, right? They really need to, if you do a deep dive, then the mythology that I want to squash is this idea of like, oh yeah, but he was always this good. We know this because he wasn't highly recruited, right? My man went to Davidson. It's not like he went to North Carolina or UCLA or any number of big time collegiate programs, right? We also know this because he was a beanpole when he entered the league. Like, if you look at Steph Curry's rookie picture, and then look at him now, he's done work in the gym. Then there's this, when you talk about mentality, whenever I listen to an interview of his, or, and I listen to sort of the way he dissects his performance, there's nobody harder on himself, or there's nobody more process oriented, or there's nobody who's more focused in terms of what he has to do than this dude. Like, it's unreal. It's unreal. And that's someone who now is earning God knows how much money, but like, he's gone through the fire, right? And he's been counted out. So I'm saying that at whatever level it is, and the reason I'm glad you talked about Noah, like, it's no shame, it's a badge of honor. All three of us played at lower level professionals, and for any kid watching this, it's like, or listening to this, you have to identify, and of course, Noah, as we wrap up, I want you to leave the people with three things, but one thing I'm definitely getting just from being in your presence, Noah, and from listening to you, is you have to be super in love with what you're doing to be able to develop that process, right? Because you started this conversation with, like, you had this big goal, and then you basically answered a bunch of simple questions, right? Which is, okay, but if I want this, what do I have to give up? or what am I going to have to do? What am I have to sacrifice? And then it becomes clear, and then your choices become clear. And I've been there, right? We've all been there, but it's like you got to have conversations with your loved ones too, and like, listen, this is my goal, and in order for me to do this, I'm gonna have to give this up, or I'm gonna have to alter my time, and you just do it. And it's not a hard decision because the principle is clear. And I just think that's a sentiment, and it's a lesson that cannot be said enough. And so whatever young people need to do to get to that place, get there, because and this is how I'd wrap it up, and this is why the importance of like the lower league stuff matters, is like at the end of the day it doesn't matter where you play. Right? It really doesn't matter. And this is true for those of you who are interested in going to colleges, right? And it's like, oh, I have to go D1. Do you really? Noah, you went to a Division III school.
And we never won the league either.
You never
we
won
weren't even a top D3 program.
You know, Mumbi went Division II at first, right? And then you stayed in Division II. Yeah,
Stay Division 2, yeah.
you know what I mean. So it's like there's no enjoy where you're at and love where you're at, because focus on process. I think that's a beautiful, beautiful message. It's such a beautiful message. So, yeah, man.
Yeah. I'd like to also pull out of there, though, I think there's something you said there that's really, to really put a pin on, and that is being in love with something doesn't necessarily mean you like it all the time.
Yeah, well said.
And that is, I would say, like if I were to put an actual percentage mark on the time that if you were to sit me down in every moment of that 2023 year, and I'm just using that as an example for life in general, but if you win the championship, you're starting in the team, you're doing whatever, and Mumbi started every game, was captain, so I'll ask you the same thing as well, right? The context. If you were to ask me the moments that if you were to sit me down in that second and go, did you enjoy this? Was this happy for you?
Right.
It was probably less than 30%. But when you love something so much, and this goes for relationships, and I would say respectfully, me and my wife have more than 30% positive interactions.
I hope so.
But
hope so,
yeah, absolutely. In fact, statistically, 5-1 is like where you need to be. But point being is that the hilarious assumption that you're going to have positive feelings all the time, period, it's so funny to me that people think that. And I think I'm going to totally butcher this, but when Mumbi and I were in Spain, our coach used to say, like, vamos a sufrir, which was like, yeah, sufrir. Like, we go to suffer. Like, we go to suffer. And that has stuck with me since that in 2018.
Vamos la hostia.
Yeah, exactly. And
Onder, coach's name was Onder, yeah.
Onder, yeah. And he said that, and it really, I think, encapsulates this. We are, number one, going together as a team. Number two, it's not going to be enjoyable for the majority of it, but we're going to do it anyway because it's what we love. And that to me was like, I just wanted to pull that out because I
love that.
Like, especially young players who come home and they're like, practice was bad today. I didn't like it today. It's like, yeah, but guess what you did? You were in process. You are you're in flow. You're getting better.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. Sometimes those young players, it's not their fault. Because I had the same conversation with coaches, and then when I work with coaches about making practice messier, for that exact reason, right? And we know that like learning, when you're going to learn something, learning is messy. But what do we have? We have a lot of coaches, and we have it's not even just like in the sports world. It's societal pressures as well to make everything nice and clean and like sanitized and perfect looking, right? And in the soccer world, what that looks like, translation is, every possession game is going to be beautifully choreographed, and every passing pattern is going to look beautiful, and nobody's making any mistakes. All right, but how messy is that, right? And how realistic is that to the game? Because when you go play this game, you guys are playing Chattanooga in the semifinal. You didn't play a perfect game. It was messy. You made mistakes, but it was how you recovered. And are we preparing players for that, or are we preparing players to just look nice and to have, uh, beautiful, wonderful feelings? And yeah, so no, I that's a great correction.
Mm.
Mumbi, what were you gonna add? Sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna add that one of the things that made that year special, to go back to it, because it was a really great analogy for life for me on so many levels, but the value in surrounding yourself with really good people, right? So surrounding yourself with good friends, with people that are like-minded. The number of times that Noah and I had good conversations about the game, but conversations about business, conversations about life, relationships, over a meal, like that was awesome for me. That for me had more value than even some days of training. Quite honestly, really, really did, because every day you know what the routine is, you know what you're supposed to be doing, but life happens, right? Like sometimes you go through personal issues. Sometimes you're down in confidence. Sometimes you're sitting there and you're looking at, hey, I'm in this situation where I'm not making very much money. What am I going to do outside of this to make more money, or to create a brand for myself, or to move myself in another direction outside of playing? I credit Noah with that, because the conversations we had, it helped me develop my brand further. It helped me. That was the year that I spent the most time putting together, my online course and kind of shifting what I was doing with college recruiting work. And if you don't have people around you that are like-minded, that can consult with you, that can sometimes push you, motivate you, tell you things that maybe you don't always want to hear, but you need to hear, that's huge for players and for people, really. And we had that, right? The group that we would go get coffee with, it was awesome to just sit down and be like, hey, have you thought about this, or what have you thought about that? And we're sitting there exchanging ideas and sometimes critiquing each other and say, hey, you could do that better. Hey, have you thought about this? That's invaluable, right? And so, finding like-minded people, also finding mentors, right? I know that like I said earlier, you had your sports psychologist, and I'd always talk to my brother, and but if you can have a mentor that can kind of keep you level-headed, that can kind of give you that advice from a point of experience, that's also huge. So find someone. It could be a sibling, maybe it's a coach, but find someone that's been there and done that. Whatever it is you want to do, that's been through that fire that you were talking about, Kosai, that can give you some perspectives maybe that you've never thought of, that can help you grow. I think that's so huge. Just surround yourself with the right people.
I love that.
Noah, man, we're getting on closing time here. It's been a powerful hour, and we could talk for hours, obviously, the three of us. But
Yeah.
what three things would you leave young players with?
Process focused. In love doesn't mean you like it all the time.
So love is stronger than like.
Yeah. Yeah. and I would honestly interchange passion for love as well. Like, passion doesn't mean you love it all the time either. And this is a tough one. I have a lot of like of things that I would say. What's my third one? Focus on providing value. As a young player, you're probably going to think you're better than you actually are. And that's okay. But you also need to provide value to your teammates first, and then to your coaches, and beyond, to the people trying to recruit you for the next level. And that's sort of that's a more specific way of saying, don't let your ego get in the way.
Gentlemen, pleasure being on with you. Noah, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Anytime.
Obviously, we'll do this again. Tell the people where they can find you, how to follow you, and we'll provide links as well.
Yeah, just Noah Cavanaugh on YouTube, Noah.Cavanaugh on Instagram, and I think I'm on X as well, and somewhere, although I don't really touch it. But yeah, YouTube and Instagram, or my website.
Love it, love it. We'll in the description we'll provide all the links. Follow Noah. Mumbi, what do you want to leave the people with?
No, what an honor, what a privilege, Noah, to have been in your life for so many years. I appreciate your friendship, and I appreciate just everything that we've been through together. So thank you again for having us in your heart and in your mind to come on here. And yeah, man, I look forward to catching up soon.
Absolutely, yeah. Right back at you.
All right, everybody. Thank you for another awesome episode with the Impact Space podcast. We will see you next time. Stay up, stay safe, and yeah, keep following along the journey. We got some awesome things coming up for you. Thanks again, Noah. Talk to you soon.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Impact Space. I know that we had a segment with Noah earlier talking about his journey and talking about living your passion. In this segment, we wanted to take some time and focus on Noah's boots and what he does with his boot reviews. So he's going to take us through his lab. We have some awesome access here to his work, and he's going to show us some of his content.
Heck yeah, awesome. So I guess. Well, feel free to ask any questions along the way, but I figured I'd just show some fun stuff. Boots have been something that have been really a huge passion for me. Like I stacked I always used to tell people like I stacked soccer.com magazines as my toilet reading as a kid. That was like the stuff that I used to look at, and I would like memorize all the tech specs and as like a 10-year-old. And the first trip that we ever took to like outside the country that I ever went to was England and Scotland to visit like where my family's from. And my mom, I was probably 11 or 12 at the time, and my mom was always like, and I remember this too, is like the only thing that I really cared about was going to the huge football boot store. Like I didn't really care about even going to like Stamford Bridge, and I didn't really care about going to the Big Ben and all these other amazing places that I then got to go visit a second time when I was older. But all I cared about was football boots. So that's what I've turned my one of my businesses into now is reviewing and testing football boots. So I figured I'd show some pretty cool stuff for those of you old heads who are watching. This is a pair of Tiempos from 2011, I believe, or 2012 maybe. These are a pair of Tiempo Legend 4 Elites, kangaroo leather, the whole 9 yards, an incredible pair of football boots. There is a pair that Matunda actually is probably, I reckon this is more your generation of boot, and I'll get them off the wall. Hold on.
What are they, old school Preds?
No, these are Nike Mercurial Vapor 4s.
Okay.
Ronaldo
I
used
never
to wear
wear
those.
Who?
This is
Cristiano.
CR7
Oh,
back in 2006,
Like 6, 7.
2007.
Yeah.
I
these
prefer Henri, but yes.
Okay, Henri. Well, Henri wore this pair too.
He did, yeah, he did.
Those are some cool ones. Let's see what's another throwback from 2010. Here's another good one. These ones are a pair that one of my favorite players, Samuel Eto'o, wore.
Ooh.
These are they were well above their time with the carbon fiber and the whole thing. This was the same era that Cameroon walked out in cutoff sleeve tank top kits. So absolute
the
icons.
skin tight jerseys.
Exactly. That 2010 World Cup where all the Puma kits were like Under Armours basically.
Right.
But yeah, any questions about the football boots? I mean,
I got a
I'm
question.
happy to show you all of them, but
Do you have any? What sizes do you have, and can you send me a pair? We can sort it out offline if you want.
we can sort it out. In fact, these are probably your size.
No, well, do you have any Mizunos?
Oh, I have plenty of Mizunos. Yeah.
Do you have any 8.5?
I don't have any 8.5. I have some 9 though. They might fit you.
Depending on, yeah, actually, so I would take you up on that, actually.
Maybe. Okay. Cool.
We'll sort that out, you know.
Mizunos are class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you, Noah. Just recently, have you added any boots that you're really excited about to your collection recently?
Ooh. Well, so those green and white Tiempos were like a pair that I had always wanted. I'll answer this in two different ways. So I'll show you a pair that I have wanted since they launched. They're like a grail pair for me. It's a boot that I'll never consider selling unless obviously somebody offers me some outrageous amount of money for them. But the other way I want to answer that question is actually exploring. I'm working on getting boots in from brands that not a lot of people know about, and I get really excited when people are in the comment section of my videos and go, oh my God, where can I buy these? Like, I never even knew about them. There's a Chinese brand called TLSS that actually make their boots in Japan, which carries with it a lot of prestige because made in Japan products are, like Matunda just said with Mizuno, made in Japan products are creme de la creme. So this TLSS brand, which these look kind of ridiculous because they're like the old Puma Tricks colorways that like Balotelli used to wear of one of each color. But this is one of their models, and it's a Tasian synthetic. It's got knit. It's got a carbon fiber sole underneath this. It's got like, Temper, like Tempur-Pedic mattresses, the brand Tempur. It's got Tempur mattress technology in the heel area to make it really squishy and beautiful underfoot. And they're creating these, and this is just I'm not sponsored by them, of course, but it's just a random brand that I found through connections on Instagram and then doing my own research of other markets that Westerners often will never know about. And I think that's super fascinating, is exploring brands that, let's say 1 billion people in India know about, but 0 people in America know about. I think that's super cool. And learning about, different manufacturing stuff and, people who are made in Italy do it different from made in Japan, who are different from made in China. And I also think, politics aside, it's allowed me to help Americans deconstruct the myth around made in China and bad quality. Because there's a lot of made in China football boots that are so superior to American and European products that it's like actually laughable. And it's like, no, in some ways, America has these amazing societal things that are incredible. The Chinese are the best in the world at production and manufacturing, period. And so it's like, and getting that sorted. And so it's allowed me to have these conversations that go outside of football boots that are really interesting, of like, yeah, but like, look at this Korean product, or look at this Indo product, or look at this Japanese product, or look at this whatever. And to be able to explore those has been super cool. So that's the long-winded answer of like one of the reasons. But this pair of football boots, I think you guys will appreciate, and a player who I think we all watched and admired. So these are a limited edition numbered pair out of 3,000. This is a Ronaldinho Tiempo special edition.
Dino.
So it's got the Ronald. Obviously, the other one says the last part of his name, but these still have the sticker on them. They're absolutely brand new. These are.
Yeah,
It's gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is one of those pairs that I will hold on to forever because it just is so incredibly beautiful.
And that's for display only. You don't test that boot. You don't play in it. Right?
I believe in playing in football boots.
Okay. I didn't know if there were some that you actually just put on display, right? There are some people that, for whatever reason, it's like Jordans, right? Like for the people that are sneakerheads, they'll be like, hey, I'm not putting those on my feet, right? That's going to go in a case. But there's some people like, hey, I'm going to rock those. I'll walk around in them. And then there's others like, oh, I'm going to play in those, right? So I didn't know if you kind of had different tiers for your boots.
I do. I think this is definitely a boot that I will only step into if I get invited to let's say I got invited to one of those influencer charity matches at like Old Trafford and there's like 70,000 people watching. like I'll probably wear these just because it's like if people know, people freaking know.
Yo, that's funny that you say that. That's a realistic possibility for you sometime down the line, isn't it?
I said no to one this year actually
No
already.
way. Are you allowed to say which one?
Hey, I was just gonna say.
No.
You're not allowed to say which
We'll talk about this offline. We'll
No,
talk about
no,
this
no,
offline.
no. No, but it's cool because that's a thing that will inevitably happen at some point, which is sweet. So you might see like that might be the largest crowd I ever, which is so freaking ironic because literally 100% of the players that play in those games have never touched a field past like amateur football. And so it's like, sure, some of them are, have got some talent or whatever, but like the majority of those games end like 17-12, and it's like just it's fun and whatever. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure I'll rock up one day in a pair of Ronaldinho Tiempos to like Old Trafford and just rip around in them.
So as we wrap up this segment, like I think, what would you leave the people with in terms of what young players should look for in a football boot, coming from an expert boot reviewer? Like they're buying new cleats or whatever. What should they look for?
So number one over everything else is fit first. That has to be. We didn't get into the story of sort of my passion for football boots that really kind of nailed in this fit first mindset. But bottom line is I broke my foot. Original diagnosis was that I would never run again, and it was very serious until we got it sorted out and I was able to play again. So fit first. It doesn't matter what brand. It doesn't matter where the boots come from, where they're made, what tier level they are. It doesn't matter if they're $300. It doesn't matter if they're $100. They have to fit your feet because at the end of the day, your feet are what allow you to play the game of football. And so fit first. That's really my only. I would say that. And then the little caveat on the side is, there are more brands than Nike, Adidas, and Puma. I'll just put it out there. And oftentimes Nike and Adidas and Puma are actually behind the curve in terms of technology. So you like to think they are because they're great at marketing, but usually they're behind the curve.
There's a lesson in there somewhere, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I love it.
Reading between the lines.
Let's cut this here so we can talk about how you can send me those Mizunos that you're going to send me.
Beautiful.
All right, break.